Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation on the most common human parasite in New York City. Let's get started. First, I have chosen to interview Adrienne Brody. She is one of the supervisors of clinical microbiology laboratory at New York Presbyterian, Weill Cornell. She supervises the mycobacteriology and parasitology branches of the laboratory. She oversees accurate analysis and quality assurance of various diagnostic tests offered at NYP, including but not limited to ovarian parasite and blood parasite exams. When asked what the most common parasites in New York are, Adrienne prompted me to look at the data on gastrointestinal PCR panels. The GI panel is a multiplex PCR useful for rapid detection of gastrointestinal infections caused by bacteria, viruses, and parasites. It is a common test requested by physicians and is collected in a culture and sensitivity parapack container illustrated here. The four parasites on this panel are Cyclospora cayetanensis, Entamoeba histolytica, Giardia, and Cryptosporidium. After perusing the data, we could deduce that the most common intestinal parasites in New York are Entamoeba histolytica, Giardia, and Cryptosporidium. Cryptosporidium is an apicomplexan protozoan that causes cryptosporidiosis. Entamoeba histolytica is a protozoan that causes amoebiasis, and Giardia lamblia causes giardiasis. You can see them here on wet mount slides. All three of these parasites can be easily transmitted from food and water contaminated with feces. From our data, we could clearly see that the most common and most problematic parasites in New York is Giardia lamblia. Giardia is twice as common as Cryptosporidium, and there is an increased number in cases in July and August, and also in children. Illustrated here is the life cycle of Giardia lamblia. As you can see, infection occurs by the ingestion of cysts in contaminated water, food, or by the fecal-oral route. In the small intestine, excistation releases trophozoites. Trophozoites will multiply by longitudinal binary fission, and encystation occurs as the parasite transits towards the colon. Because the cysts are infectious when passed in the stool or shortly afterward, person-to-person transmission is possible. The symptoms attributed to Giardia are mild or severe diarrhea, abdominal cramps, bloating, fatigue, and in some cases, there are no symptoms at all. Giardia can be transmitted in multiple ways. By swallowing unsafe food or water contaminated with Giardia eggs, having close contact with someone who has giardiasis, traveling within areas that have poor sanitation, exposure to feces through sexual contact, transferring Giardia parasites picked up from contaminated surfaces into your mouth, or having contact with infected animals or animal environments contaminated with feces. In order to prevent giardiasis, one must practice good hand hygiene, avoid water that may be contaminated, avoid food that may be contaminated, take extra care when traveling, and practice safer sex. Healthy people usually recover on their own. However, healthcare providers will prescribe these medications if necessary. The most common diagnostic method for Giardia is the traditional ovarian parasite concentration technique that is collected in a total fixed stool collection kit that is illustrated right here. It is used to properly collect and preserve stool specimen for the detection of helminth larvae and eggs, protozoan trophozoites and cysts, coccidian oocytes, and microsporidian spores. Fecal concentration, permanent stains, and most fecal immunoassays can be performed from a totofix preserved specimen. As you can see, the totofix preserves the parasite morphology. Here, it is stained in iodine and trichrome. The cyst is usually ovoid to ellipsoid in shape, and the mature cysts have 4 nuclei, which makes an interesting shape and easily recognizable. DFA technique and ELISA are 2 other methods used to confirm diagnosis. I will now describe a case study that Adrian got to diagnose. It is the case of a 37-year-old male positive for HIV. He developed symptoms and complaints of abdominal, stomach pains, gas, bloating, nausea, sleeping for more than 18 hours a day, lethargy, weakness, and diarrhea for more than a week. First, his gastrointestinal PCR panel was performed and was positive for Giardia. He was treated with tinidazole. He was feeling better, but 1 month later, his symptoms returned. His GI PCR was still positive for Giardia. During a follow-up call to physician, he complained that his medication was not working as his symptoms have returned. On his visit 2 weeks later, stool was collected for repeat GI PCR and ovine parasite exam. The GI PCR was positive for Giardia, and the ovine parasite was positive for Entamoeba histolytica and Entamoeba nana-cyst. His prescription was changed to metronidazole to cover the amoebiasis. He told the doctor he was feeling much better, and a couple of weeks later, he no longer had diarrhea. When Adrian was asked what the most unusual parasite she has ever encountered was, she told me it was Echinococcus granulosus. This was very surprising since this parasite is most frequently found in rural areas where dogs ingest organs from infected animals. Thank you so much for watching.